True love can be empowering. You find yourself dreaming of a life you never thought possible. The perfect family, in the perfect home, with the perfect man. But what if that dream life is just a mirage? A game you're both playing. But only he knows the rules. Up becomes down. Light becomes dark. You find yourself desperate to keep playing, to keep your dream alive. Until one day, it all comes crashing down. May 15th, 2010, 12:30 p.m. It's a beautiful Saturday in the North Ward neighborhood of Newark, New Jersey.
Newark is the largest city in the state of New Jersey. The North Ward, it's an urban area, is comprised of apartment buildings and businesses.
People are kind of doing the regular Saturday routine.
But that normal routine is soon interrupted by the sound of sirens.
Police get this 911 call that someone had seen a woman being attacked at her apartment.
Responding officers arrive at the apartment complex within minutes and make their way to the residence. Upon entry, they discover a grisly scene.
It was a brutal scene with blood everywhere.
There was blood all over the floor and the walls.
This woman, she's essentially laying there dying.
There were numerous lacerations all over her body.
Many of those stab wounds were in the neck and face area.
Neighbors who were already on the scene identify the victim as 29-year-old mother of three, Sharon Mowens.
Sharon is literally fighting for her life at this point. She may not survive this attack.
Sharon's two young sons and her 10-year-old daughter are also at the apartment.
The ambulance eventually showed up and they transported Sharon and her three children together to the nearby hospital.
As Sharon is rushed to the hospital, detectives begin securing the scene. Soon, they will uncover the true horrors that Sharon faced. And the chilling tale of the teenage mother at the center of it all. 18-year-old Nadia Venable was determined to give her daughter the world.
She wanted to create a stable life for her daughter.
She was doing things that most people her age were not doing. She was working full-time. She had her own vehicle. She had her own apartment.
For an 18-year-old to go to work every day, come home, pay bills, there was some fight inside of her.
Nadia's relationship with her daughter's father hadn't worked out, but she didn't let that affect home life with her little girl.
She was a good mom. The two didn't have much, but they did have each other.
Soon, Nadia landed a well-paying job at a popular downtown restaurant.
She considered this job to be a stepping stone into something better. She was hoping to work her way up.
Thrilled with the opportunities the new job afforded her, there was just one thing missing in Nadia's life.
Nadia wasn't looking for a partner that she could do life with, somebody that could help her to possibly raise her child.
A few months into her new job, Nadia found her match in 39-year-old coworker Kenny Carter.
Seemed like a really good guy. She knew he got along with everybody at work.
He is much older than her. There is an allure that's undeniable.
Being a single mother who's really just getting out of your teenage years, being able to manage those things on your own becomes tough. And so it may have been very appealing to Nadia to be with this older man who could maybe show her the ropes.
He's someone that she looks up to and someone that she admires.
The two seemed to have a lot in common. Like Nadia, Kenny had just ended a relationship and had children of his own.
He had 2 children as well as kind of an adopted stepdaughter.
As for Kenny, he was intrigued by Nadia's charm and outgoing personality.
He starts to pursue Nadia to take their relationship to another level. He painted this picture that there was going to be more for the two of them going forward.
Soon, the two were inseparable.
People are looking for intimacy. They're looking for partnership. Nadia can use the love. She can use the companionship.
The relationship was really going somewhere very seriously and fast.
For Nadia's 19th birthday, Kenny surprised her with an engagement ring.
They moved in together.
Even though they had a 20-year age difference, they really were getting along. They were having a good time. This was not a May-December romance. This was something that was going to go long-term.
8 months later, the happy couple received some unexpected news.
Nadia finds out that she's pregnant with Kenny's child.
In Nadia's mind, Kenny's gonna be in her life forever.
But following her 20th birthday, Nadia would find out she had competition. And if she wanted her happy ending with Kenny, she would have to fight for it, to the death. An ambulance has just transported 29-year-old mother of 3, Sharon Mowens, to Newark's University Hospital with multiple stab wounds. Her life hangs in the balance.
The injuries were so severe, they weren't sure she was going to make it.
Inside Sharon's apartment, detectives begin processing a scene that can only be described as horrific.
It was very chilling. You could see the violence. You see smears and marks, and it was a very traumatic event in such a confined space.
The scene suggests a crime of passion.
It's a close, personal attack. The attacker just wanted to make a statement.
But who would want to try and kill Sharon Mowens? And why? Investigators would soon uncover a tumultuous love triangle and the desperate lengths one woman would go to make her man happy.
She showed just how far she was willing to go to prove to Kenny, I'm the woman for you. No one else.
In May 2010, 20-year-old Nadia Venable was head over heels in love with 39-year-old co-worker Kenny Carter. The couple had recently gotten engaged, moved in together, and were now expecting a baby girl.
Kenny was the man of her dreams.
She had 1 child already, but it was a dream come true for her to have another with Kenny.
But Nadia didn't realize building a life with Kenny would put her in dangerous conflict with another woman.
Nadia didn't know exactly what she was getting herself into.
Investigators are trying to make sense of the vicious attack on 29-year-old mother Sharon Mowens, who has been found stabbed in her apartment.
She was stabbed multiple times.
Adding to the tragedy is the fact that Sharon's 3 children were home during the attack.
The fact that Sharon's young children were present is horrific just in and of itself.
In the kitchen, detectives note a strong odor of bleach.
We think Sharon had been cleaning immediately prior to when this incident happened. So it initially didn't strike the law enforcement officers as being strange.
Police also find what they believe to be the weapon used in the attack on Sharon.
They found a knife that was on the ground. It was approximately 10 to 12 inches long and serrated on one side. The kitchen did show sign of struggle.
While CSIs continue to collect evidence, detectives speak to Sharon's neighbors, hoping they can provide further insight into what happened. Sharon's next-door neighbor, Lisa Jackson, claims she and her friend heard a commotion coming from Sharon's apartment around noon. A few minutes later, they went next door to check things out.
They were just in shock.
Lisa says another neighbor was already there trying to help Sharon. They also found Sharon's 2 young sons in the back bedroom. But Sharon's 10-year-old daughter was nowhere in sight. Thankfully, just moments later, she returned to the apartment.
Sharon's daughter said that she ran to a local business to try and get help.
The employee at that establishment dialed 911.
Lisa says she then stayed with Sharon's daughter until first responders arrived.
She tried to comfort her and shield her from the horrific scene while they were waiting for the police.
Detectives know they need to speak with Sharon's daughter to see what she witnessed. But before they go to the hospital to interview her, detectives speak with the neighbor who had initially found Sharon. He comes forward with some chilling information.
He saw 2 assailants leaving the apartment covered in blood.
One of them gave him a smile, and he said that it's the kind of smile that you just can't unsee.
He observed those 2 getting into a green vehicle and fleeing the scene.
Detectives issue a bolo for the green SUV and its occupants, who the witness identified as 2 African-American females. After that, they head to the hospital to speak with Sharon's daughter.
Upon my arrival to the hospital, I see the 3 children there.
Family members are now with Sharon's children and inform detectives that Sharon died from her injuries shortly after arriving at the hospital.
Doctors did all they could to try to save Sharon. Unfortunately, 30 minutes after the attack, she was pronounced dead.
My heart just dropped. My brother tells me she's gone. I don't believe it. So I go in the room. My sister's laying in the bed. I can't believe this happened. My sister was the best person. She makes you smile. She will bring you joy. That girl was the most beautiful person.
Sharon's death is immediately classified as a homicide. Detectives must now begin the delicate process of interviewing Sharon's young daughter.
She said Sharon is cleaning the house. She's having fun with her daughter.
And then there's a knock on the door. She opens the door, and there's somebody standing outside asking for Sharon.
She said, "One moment," and she went and got her mother.
The child says Sharon went to the door and all of a sudden, a second woman came out of nowhere.
Bleach was thrown onto Sharon.
Bleach makes you blind for some time.
She was ambushed.
This girl knew her mother was in trouble, so she ran for help. It was very brave of her.
Sharon's daughter then reveals a shocking detail.
They learned that the person that came to the door was someone that she recognized.
She said a woman named Nana attacked her mother, and Nana is Dad's girlfriend.
Investigators are stunned. This child knows her mother's killer. And it looks like her dad does too. Soon, detectives will uncover a tale of manipulation that pushed one young woman to drastic measures.
Once she was gone, they can be together and live happily ever after.
May 2010. Police in Newark, New Jersey are investigating the stabbing death of mother of 3, Sharon Mowens. Sharon's 10-year-old daughter may hold the key to solving the case.
She witnessed the attack and ran for help.
was very brave of her, and she didn't panic or freeze, which a lot of adults would do.
Well, I was proud of my niece, and I'm like, she's a very strong girl.
Sharon's daughter tells detectives that her daddy's new girlfriend is the one who attacked her mother. At that moment, the man she calls her father arrives. 39-year-old Kenny Carter.
Kenny was actually the child's stepfather.
He was at work when this happened.
After a brief reunion with his stepdaughter, Kenny speaks with investigators.
When Kenny speaks to police, he is completely distraught.
Kenny tells detectives that he is the biological father of Sharon's two youngest children, and that he and Sharon had a lengthy history.
Kenny and Sharon, they're together for a very long time. They're considered common law husband and wife.
Kenny says that he and Sharon had been separated for more than a year, but had recently decided to get back together.
Kenny told Sharon, I still love you. I still want to be with you. We can work this out. We can get back together.
She was really in love with Kenneth. Once she came back home, my sister was happy. She had the faith that everything was going to work out between them. My sister thought they was going to spend their life together.
Investigators tell Kenny that his stepdaughter saw who attacked Sharon and can identify her.
Police asked, who's Nana?
Kenny explains that Nana is a recent girlfriend named Nadia Venable.
He told us that he believed that his girlfriend was behind it.
Kenny explains that his relationship with Nadia started up when he and Sharon were separated.
Nadia was a perfect out for Kenny, for him to feel like he can run into her arms, and the relationship between the two of them flourished during the time where he was upset with Sharon.
He said that they had planned to live together, that he was moving all of them into a larger apartment, that he was going to live with Nadia and with Nadia's child from another person, as well as the child that they were going to be having. It was going to basically be a happy family.
Kenny tells detectives that shortly after moving in with Nadia, he realized that it was Sharon with whom he really wanted to spend the rest of his life.
He worked it out with Sharon and never looked back.
Detectives suspect Nadia was jealous that Kenny had gone back to Sharon. But was she truly capable of killing for her man?
They needed to find Nadia Venable.
Police run a motor vehicle check on Nadia and discover that she owns a green SUV. The same type of car Sharon's neighbor saw fleeing the scene.
A witness saw two women leaving the scene in a car that matched the description of Nadia's car.
Detectives feel confident they're getting closer to catching Sharon Moen's killer. But in reality, they've only scratched the surface and will soon uncover a reckless game where one man had pitted two women against each other.
He liked that his new girlfriend and his ex were competing for his attention.
They fight, and what does Kenny do? He's egged on the fight.
Ay, amigos bellos. ¿Van a jugar ahorita?
Detectives investigating the murder of Sharon Moens have uncovered a deadly love triangle. And now the search is on for suspected killer, 20-year-old Nadia Venable.
When Kenny speaks to police, he explains Nadia Venable is his ex-girlfriend who he's getting ready to have a child with. But he had gone back to Sharon and to be with his family prior to Sharon being found dead.
As police search for Nadia's green SUV, detectives speak to Sharon's family to get further insight on her relationship with Kenny, as well as Kenny's dalliance with Nadia.
He introduced Nadia to Sharon and his children. This wasn't something that was kind of this dirty little secret. It was something that was out there.
Sharon's family insists that during Kenny's separation with Sharon, he was constantly instigating drama between her and his new girlfriend.
Kenneth used to say inappropriate stuff to get my sister jealous and mad. That's the type of man that he was.
The family also says that Kenny often flaunted his relationship with Nadia whenever they came to pick up the kids. And Nadia was more than happy to play along.
I think Nadia looked at Sharon and said, you know, I'm younger, I'm here now, he's mine.
She showed off the ring, saying that they was engaged.
Anger, resentment, rage, all these things probably were going on inside Sharon, all at the time while she had to be a loving mother to her 3 children.
Sharon's family tells detectives it didn't take long for the situation to come to a head.
There were physical altercations that happened between Sharon and Nadia that started off verbal and ended up with a struggle.
The family says that one especially heated altercation took place in May of 2009, and Kenny blew off Sharon's phone calls.
Sharon tries calling Kenny, he's not picking up. She then starts calling Nadia's phone. She's not picking up.
That's when Sharon saw her ex and his new girlfriend parked just a few blocks down the street.
Sharon approaches Nadia. They start screaming at each other.
Kenny could have separated those 2 women when they were fighting. From the looks of it, Kenny possibly provoked it.
He's the ringmaster. He's egging on the fight. He's not pulling them away. He's not calling the police. He's just enjoying watching these 2 women fight over him.
Each one of these women were almost trying to see who at the end Kenny would choose.
Kenny was clearly playing both of these women.
Still, Nadia is the one who will have to answer for the alleged crime. Police ramp up their search for her.
They spot Nadia's vehicle in a nearby town of East Orange, Jersey, which is not too far from Newark.
Fearful that Nadia will flee the state if she discovers they're looking for her, detectives hatch a plan to lure her into custody before she even knows what's happening.
They decide that they would tow the car.
So the next day, Nadia takes the bait, and she calls the East Orange Police Department to report her car stolen.
She gave the make and model, and they told her that she had to come down to the precinct to collect paperwork in order for her to pick it up from the impound lot.
I called the East Orange Police Department personnel. They said, if and when she comes in, you need to call my cell phone directly, and I'll be there. Don't scare her off.
That same morning, Nadia walks into the East Orange precinct to claim her vehicle. The desk officer follows the plan to a T.
I arrived at the East Orange Police Department. She was sitting in the lobby. I just told her, Nadia, stand up, turn around, put your hands behind your back. We told Nadia she was under arrest for murder. Took her into custody.
It's surprising she went into this police station after the alleged murder. Even if it is a different precinct, it's still a pretty gutsy move.
Nadia Venable was charged with multiple offenses, including burglary, felony murder, conspiracy to commit murder.
Detectives are confident they've caught Sharon Moen's killer. But would Nadia come clean about her role in the crime?
After she was Mirandized, Nadia agreed to waive her rights and waive her right to an attorney, and she did speak to the police.
What Nadia says will confirm just how far she was willing to go to keep Kenny Carter by her side.
This was done for the love of a man. Nadia loved Kenny, and she would do anything for Kenny.
May 16, 2010. Investigators have arrested Nadia Venable as the prime suspect in the brutal murder of 29-year-old Sharon Mowens. They believe the women were caught up in a toxic game stoked by one man, Kenny Carter.
Sharon and Kenny already had children together, but Nadia was carrying Kenny's baby.
Kenny apparently was going back and forth between the two mothers.
Detectives question Nadia, and to their surprise, she immediately opens up about what happened.
She was going to talk to us, so we were there to listen.
She told them a little bit about the background of her relationship with Kenny and with Sharon.
Nadia explains that once she and Kenny started dating, she felt their love would last forever.
And looking at this relationship, things not only progress very quickly, but very deeply. Whenever someone enters into a new relationship, there is this euphoric sense of this person is all that we need and be that person's everything.
Nadia claims it wasn't long before Kenny proposed to her and asked her to move in with him.
They begin this romantic relationship, and about a month later, they're already living together.
They're doing everything together. It's a functioning household. It's clear that Kenny is moving on from his days with Sharon, and he's moving on with Nadia.
Nadia says that when she became pregnant, Kenny was beyond excited.
I think in Nadia's mind, it solidified her victory over Sharon. Now I have Kenny's child. I will only assume she's very prideful of all she's accomplished in a very short time. I think it's a game changer.
Kenny had promised Nadia that they were going to get a bigger house together. They were going to move all his children in together. They were going to be this big, happy family.
Nadia says that things were going well, but then, 6 months into the pregnancy, something about Kenny changed.
Kenny starts acting really funny. He's disappearing. He's gone for days on end. He's not answering the phone.
When she's questioning, where are you? Very vague answers, enough to make any woman essentially get upset about what's happening to her.
He began his tricks, like he did with Sharon, leaving, using her, not making those promises that he was supposed to keep.
Nadia says that Kenny's dismissive attitude toward her made her suspect he'd rekindled his romance with Sharon, which led the two women to confront each other once again.
There'd be these arguments, calling names, disrespecting of one another. Sharon and Nadia kind of had this rivalry.
Nadia says shortly after one of these blow-ups, Kenny packed his bags and moved in with Sharon. Nadia was crushed.
She must have felt the sense of abandonment. This is the father of my child. Where is he? Why isn't he here? There's this level of desperation for answers. There's this level of wanting to understand and know what is going on. This should have really been a really happy time for Nadia and Kenny. They should have been celebrating their baby, but instead she's entirely alone.
She now has to carry the burden of the entire home, which is a heavy burden to bear. Things begin to really deteriorate very, very quickly.
According to Nadia, she was desperate to have the happy family Kenny had promised her. And she wasn't about to let Sharon take her place in that fantasy.
She straight up said I was going to go there to F her up. She didn't say that she was going there to murder her. She said she was going there to F her up.
Now 7 months pregnant, Nadia enlists her 15-year-old cousin Erica as backup.
Her intention was to go inside, to throw the bleach in her face and to beat her up.
She thought Kenny was testing her loyalty and her love. She thought he wanted to see just how far she was willing to go for him.
Nadia instructs Erica to knock on Sharon's door. When she answers, they attack. But Nadia tells police that's when things took an unexpected turn.
Nadia said it was her cousin that attacked Sharon and stabbed her to death.
Nadia is somebody who, for all accounts, had a squeaky clean record. This is not somebody who was killed before.
According to Nadia, Erica was extremely protective of her and was nearly as furious with Sharon as she was.
The detectives are very suspicious of Nadia's story. They're wondering why a 15-year-old girl is going to kill a virtual stranger, and in such a horrific way.
Investigators need to find Nadia's cousin and get her side of the story.
We ended up issuing arrest warrants for her.
Police tracked down Nadia's 15-year-old cousin and bring her in for questioning.
Erica confirms much of Nadia's story.
She indicated that she was basically just there to back up Nadia should things get out of hand.
Nadia had this plan that she was going to use her younger cousin as a decoy to knock on the door.
But Erica explains that once Sharon came to the door, Nadia went ballistic.
She said Nadia was on top of Sharon Mowens, stabbing her multiple times.
The cousin said that she never killed anyone, and that it was all Nadia.
Despite the conflicting accounts, detectives believe it was Nadia who was really wielding the knife that day.
The 15-year-old cousin had absolutely no motive to go and do any harm to Sharon or to anybody else that was involved in this.
For Nadia, with Sharon no longer in the picture, Kenny could be set free. No longer have to worry about the shame or the guilt of leaving behind Sharon and his 3 children.
Witnesses saw her leaving that apartment covered in blood. And she had this disturbing grin on her face. It's like she had won.
Investigators have arrested 20-year-old Nadia Venable and her 15-year-old cousin Erica for the murder of Sharon Mowens, a 29-year-old mother of 3. They believe Nadia's devotion to her man, Kenny Carter, may have driven her to kill.
Nadia had multiple incidences with Sharon Mowens over the past 16 months, physical altercations over jealousy and fighting over Kenny.
Authorities feel confident in their case against Nadia, thanks to help from an unlikely source.
They struck a deal with the 15-year-old cousin in exchange for her to cooperate with them and testify against Nadia.
While awaiting trial, Nadia gives birth to a baby girl.
While in prison, Nadia ended up giving birth to Kenny's baby, and the baby was taken by the state and given up for adoption.
That's because Kenny Carter, the child's biological father, had landed himself in jail shortly after the murder.
Kenny was mad about my sister being murdered. He went to him and Nana used to live at. He went there, he burnt down her house.
He damaged everything that she had, as basically saying, you can't have me.
He ended up getting incarcerated for it.
In June 2013, almost 3 years after Sharon Mowens' murder, Nadia Venable's trial finally gets underway.
It was a 3-week trial, and I have never seen a jury that was as attentive as this jury was.
The prosecution contends Nadia attacked Sharon in order to prove her love for Kenny Carter. To bolster that theory, the state calls Nadia's 15-year-old cousin Erica to the stand.
She said my sister came, running towards the door, and that's when they threw the bleach in my sister's face.
Sharon's blinded by this bleach.
They started to hit her, started to punch her.
Erica tells the court that's when Sharon's 10-year-old daughter fled the apartment.
Nadia tells her cousin to shut the door.
Sharon's in this panic. She runs into the kitchen.
She grabs a knife. She loses control.
And that's when, according to Erica, Nadia grabbed the knife and began stabbing Sharon.
Nadia wanted to keep Kenny at any cost. And even if that cost meant killing Sharon, to her, in that moment at least, it was completely worth it.
Nadia may not have gone there with the intention of completely ending Sharon's life, but once this attack got so out of control, she knew that she needed to finish what she started. And she wouldn't have to worry about this threat anymore.
Prosecutors assert that Sharon was concerned for the safety of her children, who were still in the home during the murder.
Sharon knew that she was gonna die at this moment.
That's the last thought she had, was about her children.
Erica states that after Nadia stabbed Sharon some 27 times, the two women fled the apartment, where they encountered one of Sharon's neighbors. And Nadia flashed that now infamous smile.
The smile says it all. You leave someone to die, you have blood all over you, you show no remorse, and you leave thinking you did it. That you've eliminated your competition and that your man will come back to you.
When it's the defense's turn, they make a bold move and call Nadia herself to the witness stand.
Nadia's defense is that she really didn't do it, that it was her younger cousin who did everything.
I asked her, were you there when she was stabbed over 27 times? She said, yes, I was there. She admitted to being there the entire time, but not taking any part in any of it.
But whose testimony would the jury believe? Just 3 hours after both sides rest their case, the foreman announces they've reached a verdict.
They found her guilty of all the charges.
Nadia Venable is sentenced to 55 years in prison. As for Erica, her charges are dropped in exchange for providing testimony against her cousin. While Nadia's sentence gives Sharon's family a sense of justice, nothing could ever bring back their loved one.
My sister, Sharon, I miss her so much. But it's like, she's still with me. It's a beautiful thing, but a sad thing at the same time. Since my sister passed, I made a promise that I was gonna keep her kids together, and that's what I have done. I adopted her 2 boys. I'm doing the best that I can as an aunt. I feel like sometimes, like if she was here, a lot of things would be so much better. So much better.
It seems lives were destroyed by a jealous rivalry, fueled by one man's desire to have his cake and eat it too.
Kenny couldn't make up his mind on which woman he wanted to be with. So Nadia decided to take matters into her own hands and help him make that decision. And unfortunately, she took it too far. The moment the knife went into her hand, she lost it.
Then on July 1st, 2014, the case takes another dark turn.
Less than a...
It was a plot plucked straight from a modern teen drama.
They were the 3 musketeers, basically. They had been friends for so long and starting to create this electric bond.
It's a love triangle kind of story, a bit of a one-sided triangle.
But when one of them disappears without a trace...
She says, I'm here because my boyfriend is missing.
The community comes together determined to find answers.
They suspect that something isn't right, but suspecting something isn't right is a long way from saying somebody is dead.
Where are you? And when police dig deeper into the relationships,
It was kind of like, I want to be with you, and nothing else is going to matter.
They discover some tales are as old as time.
A deranged lover who was not going to accept rejection.
Is truly unhinged, obsessive, and bizarre.
This doesn't happen to normal people. It's very, soap opera-like.
Well, how do you think they come up with themes for soap operas?
After battling his demons finally won.
September 21st, 2012. With college football season in full swing, it's an exciting Friday morning in Gainesville, Florida.
Gainesville is a quaint little college town. It houses the largest university in the state, the University of Florida, home of the Fighting Gators.
No matter where you go in Gainesville, you're going to see orange and blue representing the University of Florida.
As students across campus head to morning classes, abuzz with weekend planning. One young woman, Rebecca Johnson, is instead heading into the university police office.
The University of Florida has their own police department. Just like a lot of major universities, they're responsible for the security and safety of all of the students and faculty.
Accompanied by her friend, Pedro Bravo, Rebecca tells the officers that she hasn't been able to get in touch with her boyfriend, Christian Aguilar, for almost 24 hours.
Rebecca told the police that she and Christian were supposed to hang out the night before, and this was a very unusual behavior for him to not have shown up for their date.
Pedro echoes Rebecca's concerns.
Pedro mentioned that he had hung out with Christian the day before, that he hadn't seen or heard from him since that particular time.
The desk officer assumed this was a circumstance where someone had essentially gone partying, as our students are prone to do.
But Rebecca and Pedro insist that this sort of behavior is out of character for Christian. He's a conscientious student who never misses class.
Chris wasn't out partying. Chris was studying, he had tests, he was busy. It was the middle of the fall semester.
She had something in her gut telling her that something was very, very wrong.
Miami native Christian Aguilar may have been shy, but he always opened up around the people he loved.
He was a very loving and caring person. When you were in front of Christian, you felt like you were the only thing in front of him.
By the time he started high school at Miami's prestigious Doral Academy, Christian began to blossom among his peers.
He always gave us satisfaction of being always in advanced classes and doing everything that he was supposed to do.
Even with all his studying, Christian found time to have a full social calendar.
This young man had two good friends that he had known throughout high school. One was Rebecca, and the other one was Pedro. Pedro and Rebecca were boyfriend and girlfriend in high school, and the three were known to have a really strong friendship.
They always have good grades. They had great aspirations to go to the university. So I think that brought them together.
They were the Three Musketeers, basically.
But as college drew near, it looked like the trio of friends would go their separate ways.
When it was time to go to college, Christian was going to the University of Florida. Rebecca was going to Santa Fe Community College, also located in Gainesville. And Pedro was accepted at Florida International University in Miami with a 4-year scholarship.
Christian couldn't have been more excited to start his college career and earn a degree. He decided to study biomedical engineering.
He wanted to help people with physical impediments that have lost their arms, extremities.
He was someone that really wanted to make a difference in this world, wanted to have an impact and help people.
In June, Christian made the move from Miami up to Gainesville and started settling into his new dorm for the summer session.
You don't realize until the moment that you are dropping him off in the university that he's gonna be leaving your house. And like I'm telling you that Christian was a little bit shy, so we have our doubts that he was going to be okay by himself.
Miami is about 5 hours away from Gainesville, so it can be kind of scary when you're not around the rest of your family, especially being that far away.
But around the 4th of July, Christian found a cure for his homesickness when he ran into his old friend Rebecca Johnson at an event in Gainesville.
They end up seeing each other July 4th at a fireworks demonstration on the campus of the University of Florida.
When they met at the 4th of July, it was fireworks between the two. It was instant fireworks.
In high school, Christian had seen Rebecca as a good friend who was dating his buddy, Pedro. But Rebecca tells Christian they'd recently split up.
At that time, she was no longer in relationship with Pedro, and so she was free to date.
And before long, romantic sparks between Christian and Rebecca ignited into flames. The old friends never went a day without calling, texting, or seeing one another in person.
She and Christian developed a very fast and intense relationship.
They had been friends for so long and were starting to create this electric romantic bond.
But now, just 2 months into the whirlwind relationship, Christian has seemingly vanished.
On this particular day, Rebecca had not heard from Christian in quite some time. It broke the routine. They always texted each other on a regular basis, and they saw each other almost every day.
Rebecca was so concerned about Christian, she enlisted his friend and her ex, Pedro Bravo, to help look for him.
Although Pedro originally planned to stay in Miami for college, he ended up moving to Gainesville just before the semester started.
Rebecca also calls Christian's parents to let them know what's going on.
She called us at 9 o'clock in the morning, letting us know that Christian was missing. I decided at that moment, something is wrong. Something was telling me, this is not Christian.
The family, as soon as Rebecca calls them and tells them that she doesn't know where Christian is, they immediately drive 5 hours to Gainesville because they are that concerned.
Perhaps on the middle of the way, he's gonna answer, he's gonna tell us I'm okay, and that's what our thoughts. But then with the progress on the road, we discovered that it was not going to be that easy.
However, campus police don't have to look far for their first potential clue. What immediately stands out is Christian's relationship to the people reporting him missing.
Rebecca says, I'm here because my boyfriend is missing. This is my ex-boyfriend, and he's the last person who was with him. And what we know in that moment is that there is something that is unusual here.
For 18-year-old Christian Aguilar, life couldn't have been better. He was pursuing a biomedical engineering degree at his dream university, and he'd just started dating a beautiful young woman he'd known since high school, Rebecca Johnson.
Both of them being recently in Gainesville and both of them being recently single, they end up starting to talk to each other and beginning a romantic relationship.
But now it's been almost 24 hours since anyone has seen or heard from Christian. And Rebecca has recruited her ex-boyfriend, Pedro Bravo, to help file a missing persons report with campus police. Like Rebecca, Pedro had known Christian since high school. And he'd recently joined them in Gainesville after transferring to Santa Fe Community College.
Pedro decides that he is foregoing his full-ride scholarship to FIU, and within days before the start of school, he registers at Santa Fe.
According to Pedro, he and Christian hung out the day before, but he hasn't seen or heard from him since that afternoon. And when police stop by Christian's residence hall, the mystery only deepens.
When the police go to Christian's dorm room, they talk to his roommate, who says that Christian did not return home the previous night.
What's especially strange is that Christian left his laptop sitting on his desk. Something that, according to his roommate, he normally would have taken with him.
This was a young man who was making good grades and was very serious about what he was there to do. And so the roommate found it odd that the laptop was still in the dorm room.
Everything looked kind of undisturbed, and it just really did not make sense. All of Chris's things were there, but Chris wasn't there.
It began to unfold that this is a serious situation, and the University of Florida began a multifaceted effort to try and start making some quick decisions about what is going on here.
Suspecting Christian may no longer be on campus, the university hands the case over to the Gainesville police.
I was notified like 1 o'clock in the afternoon because UPD felt like they needed to turn it over to us.
Detectives' first order of business is to get more detailed statements from Christian's two friends, Rebecca and Pedro. The investigators start with Pedro.
See if we can locate Christian or figure out where he may have been, please.
I started talking to Pedro at that time, asking, from the very beginning, what happened.
Tell me a little bit about where you were with Christian yesterday.
I called him up and he agreed to meet me Thursday at 2. He wanted to get the new Kanye West CD, so we went into the Best Buy and we looked around and we found the new Kanye West CD and he got it, and then we left.
I asked him what was the last thing that Christian was wearing as far as clothing, so we could put out a bulletin for him. And he told me that he was not sure. He might have been wearing a pullover shirt, might have been wearing jeans. He really wasn't sure.
What kind of shoes was he wearing?
I don't remember, but he wasn't wearing sneakers. He was wearing something like casual walking around shoes.
Pedro says he was more interested in catching up with his old friend than paying attention to his wardrobe.
It was like when you meet an old friend who's brought you like the best 4 years of your life through high school and has always been there.
After picking up the CD, Pedro says he and Christian went for a drive.
So we're driving around and we're talking, and at that point we saw a hitchhiker, just a random guy. A lot of people were passing by, but he had his thumb out, and we're like, why not? Because it'd be an interesting experience to pick up someone like that on the road.
Hey, you need a ride?
Pedro says they drive for about 10 or 15 minutes with the hitchhiker in the backseat of the car. And eventually the hitchhiker says, okay, this is my stop. I'm over here at this storage unit over here. So they let the hitchhiker out and then they go on their merry way.
Have a good one.
Pedro and Christian, they're now continuing to drive along after they've dropped off the hitchhiker. And Pedro says they got into kind of a deep emotional conversation.
I've been going through a very rough time because I've been contemplating suicide, and I almost attempted at one point. And I wanted to talk to him because I know he'd be one of the people that would really help me out.
Pedro says Christian tried to comfort him, but Pedro lashed out, and the discussion got heated.
I said, you don't understand what I'm going through. And he's like, I think I understand what I'm going through. And he got frustrated and angry at me, and he's like, stop the car, I want to get off.
His versions of the events has he and Chris having a verbal disagreement, and Chris simply saying, I'd like to get out of the car. Him stopping and saying, okay, see you later, bye.
In my mind, I'm like, fine, you don't want to help me? Don't help me. So I stopped the car and I let him get off and I drove away.
Christian got out of the car coming into the city limits of Gainesville. Pedro said that Christian had taken his backpack with him when he got out of the vehicle, and that's the last time he heard from him.
So where did you go after you dropped Christian off?
Then I drove back home and I wanted to go to sleep, so I took 4 sleeping pills and knocked out.
Okay. You know about what time it was that you got home?
I got home at around 7:30, 7:45, around that time, something like that.
He said that he had taken some sleep medication, went to sleep that night, and about 3 o'clock in the morning he woke up because he got this telephone call from Rebecca saying that she couldn't find Christian, wanted to know if he would help her.
Now Pedro says letting Christian out of his car is something he deeply regrets.
I wish I could have kept driving and then Like he'd be home right now, or he'd be doing something right now.
Where do you think Christian is right now?
But honestly, I just really hope he's lost. I'm gonna be really mad at him if he is lost, but I just really hope he is lost.
Seems like a long time to be lost, don't you think?
Yeah, I just hope something, like, he's okay.
But with every passing hour, there's a growing concern that Christian is not okay. And there's another nagging concern.
Pedro tells the detectives he wonders if possibly the hitchhiker could have done something or harmed Christian, since Christian was dropped off not too far from the storage unit facility.
It's a bizarre theory, but at this point, it's their strongest lead. One that detectives hope to corroborate before it's too late.
They suspect that something isn't right, but suspecting something isn't right is a long way from saying somebody is dead.
Chris, where are you? Joshua, please, Joshua.
According to a U.S. Department of Justice study on hitchhiking, drivers are more likely to commit a crime against a hitchhiker than the other way around. The study also reveals roughly 41% of all crimes committed by or against hitchhikers occur within 3 miles of the pickup spot. Gainesville police are speaking with college freshman Pedro Bravo about the disappearance of his friend, Christian Aguilar. According to Pedro, he and Christian picked up a hitchhiker shortly before Christian vanished.
He just wanted to be dropped off a little bit past 441, so we dropped him off at 441 at like a storage place.
Pedro says not long after that, he'd also let Christian out of the car, which leads to a chilling theory.
If he's been dropped off on the side of the road not too far from where the hitchhiker was located, then maybe the hitchhiker has something to do with Christian going missing.
Although he doesn't have a name, Pedro is able to provide a detailed physical description of the man.
He described this guy in detail from head to toe.
He had like a little knapsack with him and stuff like that. And he had like a white beard, and he had a little hat with him. I remember like a type of Santa Claus figure, but like if Santa Claus lost a lot of weight.
However, investigators can't help but notice something odd about Pedro's story.
You're reporting your lifelong friend missing. You're the last person who saw him. And you can't describe what he was wearing, but one guy that you gave a ride to, you can describe from head to toe. That was kind of a little red flag for me.
To get a better description of what Christian was wearing, detectives pulled surveillance footage from the Best Buy he and Pedro reportedly stopped at on the...
And so we know at this point he's wearing a light blue long sleeve shirt and some jeans.
Along with a description of the hitchhiker, police released Christian's photo to local law enforcement and media.
That's when I contacted more detectives and asked them to go to that area and start searching that area for Christian.
We had no evidence to go on, so we were listening to Pedro.
He was saying that he was okay and alive when he left them. And the location, and we start trying to find out what was that location so we can start going looking.
I remember hearing these parents unable to find their child and just screaming his name in the woods. It's a moment that will never leave my brain.
Back at the police station, investigators continue speaking with Pedro.
Is your car here?
Yes.
Do you mind if we take a look at it?
Go ahead.
Crime scene technicians go to the car and they look through the car. They're not there to do a full forensic analysis of the car. They're just looking to see if there's anything that would help them determine where Chris is at that point. They locate a receipt at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning. He is buying some kind of meal at McDonald's.
So that's ringing alarm bells for police, because Pedro told them that he went to bed early and took a bunch of sleeping pills.
Detective Roberts returns to the interview room and confronts Pedro about the receipt. But Pedro says he can explain.
I might have had like the midnight munchies, just like been really hungry and gone out, but I was really tired, so I don't remember exactly if I had out.
People who don't have anything to hide and don't have any reason to hide it usually remember if they get up at 1:30 in the morning from a dead sleep and go down to McDonald's and get something, okay, that really doesn't make sense.
Just another step in the little saga of making me believe that he may know a lot more than what he's telling us.
So Detective Roberts decides to try a different tactic with Pedro.
At the point where it looked like we weren't going to get anything new for a little bit, I asked him if he would be willing to go with me to show me the route they drove, where they dropped off the hitchhiker.
You're going to be honest? Show me exactly where you left it.
Exactly.
Finally, faced with the reality of having to recreate his story on the spot, Pedro admits that he has not been completely forthcoming.
One thing I have to tell you, because you're right, I can't keep everything from you.
Florida police investigating the disappearance of UF student Christian Aguilar have been questioning his friend Pedro Bravo, who's now agreed to take them to the spot he says he last saw Christian. But along the way, Pedro makes a startling admission.
It's one thing that's going to bug me if I don't tell you. When I was with Chris in the car, after we dropped off the hitchhiker guy, we were talking and things were so heated.
Detective Roberts takes the opportunity to address the obvious question. Was the rift between Pedro and Christian rooted in the love triangle with Rebecca?
I didn't ask you before, and I know we've touched on it, but I really want to know for my own personal knowledge.
I'm not going to lie and be like she wasn't part of it. She was part of the equation.
And Pedro says when he confided in Christian about feeling suicidal over his breakup with Rebecca, Christian's response drove his anger into rage.
He said, no, you should just kill yourself.
Pedro says that he told Christian that he was feeling like he should kill himself, and Christian told him, go ahead.
At that point, I turned around and I just punched him in the face.
He says they both get out of the car and they engage in a physical fight.
You punched him in the face, and things got out of hand.
He got hurt.
And you left him.
I asked him, well, if that happened, was Christian breathing when you left? And he goes, yes, but barely.
In my mind, I thought he was okay. Like, I was like, he's probably fine.
This changes the whole ball game as far as the way this investigation is going. Now he's admitting that they got into a fight, he beat him up to the point of he was almost unconscious and he left him on the side of the road.
But when Pedro takes Detective Roberts to the location where he claims he left Christian, there's no sign of him.
There's no proof that there's ever been a fight. There's no blood. There's no Christian Aguilar. And there's no evidence that he was ever there.
And with no leads on the hitchhiker's identity, investigators suspect Pedro may have made that character up entirely.
They went to the location where he allegedly dropped him off, which had cameras, to see if they could ascertain any kind of identification of there actually being a hitchhiker. There was no proof that that person ever existed. Nobody reported such a person, sort of Santa Claus hitchhiking through Gainesville.
Still, for the sake of Christian's loved ones, they hold out hope that Pedro is leading them in the right direction.
We spent the rest of that night looking for Christian.
We got family in Miami that came immediately. Grandma, my aunts, cousins, everybody came to the search.
Meanwhile, police turned back to the woman who first reported Christian missing, his girlfriend, Rebecca Johnson.
So I understand that you and Pedro were dating all through high school.
Yes.
Rebecca says when she and Pedro broke up after high school graduation, she was shocked by how he took it.
He was very like distraught with the idea of like us breaking up. He was kind of like, I don't care what you're feeling right now. Like I want to be with you, and nothing else is gonna matter.
Rebecca says that soon after her move north, she reconnected with Christian during the summer, and they started dating.
We always had a really close relationship. Like he considered me like a best friend.
As the relationship between Chris and Rebecca evolves, Rebecca is very adamant that she does not want Pedro to find out. She's concerned that he might be depressed and upset, but someone showed Chris's Facebook account to Pedro Bravo. There were photographs of Chris and Rebecca together, and some of them could not be mistaken for anything other than people in a relationship.
That's when Pedro's behavior became really bizarre.
Even though he had a full ride to Florida International University in Miami, Pedro withdrew from the school at the last minute and enrolled in Santa Fe College in Gainesville, the same school Rebecca was attending.
At that point, I was just like, no, that's crazy. Normal people don't just pick up all their stuff and go up to Gainesville for a girl. I mean, it's very like soap opera like.
Well, you know, it does happen to people. How do you think they come up with themes for soap operas?
It's a love triangle kind of story in a sense. It's a bit of a one-sided triangle.
And on the day Christian disappeared, Rebecca says he and Pedro were hanging out for the first time in a while to try and clear the air.
She knew that he was supposed to go over and meet Pedro and get picked up by him.
So when Christian went missing, it only seemed natural to enlist Pedro's help to find him.
Rebecca said the whole point of Christian and Pedro actually getting together that afternoon was to kind of reconcile that relationship.
Rebecca says despite Pedro's mental health issues, she didn't think he was capable of hurting anyone.
Was there any comments from him about him hurting himself?
Nothing about him hurting himself, and nothing about him
doing anything drastic, you know?
No, nothing drastic.
But to the detectives, it sounds like Pedro had an ulterior motive. Clearly, he wasn't over his relationship with Rebecca, and Christian was the one person standing in the way.
As suspicious as police are at this point during the investigation, they still don't really have hard evidence to say that Pedro actually killed Christian.
However, since Pedro already admitted to beating Christian up and leaving him on the side of the highway, the police are able to formally charge him.
At that point, he was arrested for the criminal offense of failure to render aid to a person that you had harmed.
Convinced they're on the right track, investigators obtain a search warrant for Pedro's apartment.
We looked in the trash can. We found some, what I would call, cut open sleeping capsules.
They had all been sliced open and squeezed out.
And when police make their way to Pedro's closet, they unpack their most incriminating evidence yet.
We saw this luggage in there. Inside that was a briefcase. And when we opened the briefcase, it had Christian's driver's license, his student ID card.
They found receipts, and those receipts showed him purchasing diphenhydramine, a sleeping agent, and he's purchasing things like duct tape, razor blades, a shovel.
Police also find a journal in Pedro's bedroom, detailing his obsession with Rebecca.
He's written these obsessive, unhinged notes about how he wants to get Rebecca back. No one will stop him. Nothing's getting in his way.
It became pretty clear that Christian was never going to be found alive, and then there was some level of interest that this might be a bodiless prosecution because we didn't have a body.
I'm praying with everything that we got, and we have vigils and everything, so my faith was strong.
Then, after 3 weeks of searching in vain, a pair of hunters enter the woods in rural Levy County, about an hour southwest of Gainesville.
They are moving through this area and they smell decay.
Airwick's cordless essential mist diffuser.
After weeks of searching for 18-year-old Christian Aguilar, Florida police feel confident that the victim's romantic rival, Pedro Bravo, is responsible. And on October 12th, a pair of hunters in a remote area stumble across a chilling scent.
They are moving through this area and they smell decay.
They start looking closely and they realize there's a human skull here with other bones and tattered clothing.
The body is buried in an area that is rich with limestone in this very shallow grave.
Wildlife and vegetation and heat have clearly gotten to him, but detectives pretty much know that this has to be Christian.
The clothing that Christian was wearing matched the clothing on the body.
We had a forensic anthropologist, and he was able to make a positive identification right there at the gravesite from digital x-rays of Christian's dental work.
When his body is recovered, he has duct tape around his ankles, around his wrists, and we suspect that it was originally around his mouth.
Due to the extreme level of decomposition, the ME can't reach a conclusion about how Christian died. But based on the duct tape, one thing is apparent.
They did determine that it was a homicide.
Christian's body may have decomposed, but duct tape does not.
When detectives break the news to Christian's family, they're overwhelmed with grief.
He told me he's Christian. And at that moment I knew that was one of the most difficult experiences. That day, my life was shattered.
The outpouring of emotion in that room was nothing that I've ever experienced before, because they had, for about 3 weeks, their life had been just completely upended without any kind of answers of where their son was.
Following the discovery of Christian's remains, Pedro's charges are upgraded to first-degree murder.
In the run-up to Pedro's trial, police are contacted by an inmate at the Alachua County Jail named Wes Mercer. And he has a story to tell.
The jailhouse informant, through his lawyer, reached out to the assistant state attorney because he wanted a deal.
Wes Mercer comes forward and says that Pedro admitted to killing Christian.
He told me everything.
At first, detectives are skeptical of the informant. That is, until he starts revealing specific details about the investigation that only a guilty party would know.
Wes, the cellmate, says that Pedro told him that he laced Christian's fourth string with sleeping pills. Christian passed out, and then he said he got a tow strap and got in the backseat of the car and he strangled him. He explicitly said that it took 13 minutes for him to take his last breath.
That's when he was able to take Christian out to Levy County and then bury him in a shallow grave.
Wes's statement lines up with the evidence police have recovered. But
he's not done.
He's not done? What do you mean he's not done?
Pedro apparently wants to orchestrate this entire plan to commit even more murders from the jail.
Pedro spoke with him about wanting to harm or kill other students at the University of Florida.
Pedro's parents wanted to come and support their son, but they, for some reason or another, couldn't financially or something of that nature. Well, the Aguilars paid their way to come to Gainesville just so they could be with their son in their difficult time. So at this point, you've got a family who's looking at the probable killer of their son, and they said, you're the parents, you need to be here as well. And that was just something I'd never, ever experienced before, never seen that kind of love and care for somebody else like that.
police in Gainesville, Florida are finally ready to prosecute Pedro Bravo for the murder of his former best friend, Christian Aguilar. But before Pedro's trial even begins, a jailhouse tip adds a bizarre wrinkle to the case.
He's not done.
He's not done? What do you mean he's not done?
He told us that Pedro Bravo wanted him to arrange for some of his friends to go out and commit another homicide or two, and to do it in the same manner that was used on Christian, to make it look like there was a serial killer loose in Gainesville.
This shows the demented mind of Pedro, where he comes up with this plot to say, help me create a serial killer, so that it appears that there's a serial killer out there, and then police will let me go because they'll believe that I didn't do it.
With a mountain of evidence piling up against him, Pedro Bravo goes to trial in August of 2014, almost 2 years after Christian's death.
The prosecutor's opening statement was that this is a case of jealousy, that Pedro was jealous of his ex-girlfriend's relationship with his friend Christian.
His intent was to get Rebecca back in his life as his girlfriend. The killing of Christian Aguilar was simply Rebecca back in his life as his girlfriend. The killing of Christian Aguilar was simply one part of that plan.
Since he had no prior record or history of violence, Pedro thought he'd easily get away with it.
It's truly unhinged, obsessive, and bizarre.
He's a sociopath.
Prosecutors say without
Rebecca back in his life as his girlfriend. The killing of Christian Aguilar was simply one part of that plan.
Since he had no prior record or history of violence, Pedro thought he'd easily get away with it.
It's truly unhinged, obsessive, and bizarre.
He's a sociopath.
Prosecutors say without any warning signs, Pedro set his psychotic plan in motion on the afternoon of September 20th, 2012.
And wrapped it around Christian's neck and pulled and put his knees up against the back of the seat.
He used a moving strap to choke this young man, and he watched him die.
Once Christian was dead, Pedro drove west out of Gainesville to the middle of nowhere in Levy County.
He is going to be under the impression that he is so far out into this swampy area that no one is ever going to come. What he does not understand is that it is hunting season. This is a hunting lease.
As a shock to everyone, Pedro decides to take the stand.
Pedro insisted on his innocence, and it appeared that he was very confident that he was going to be found not guilty and was going to walk out of court a free man.
You keep saying a lie, a lie, a lie, a lie, and it becomes true in his mind, not in ours. But that's what he's doing. It's Pedro being Pedro.
After a 2-week trial, it only takes the jury a few hours to render a verdict. Guilty.
We had charged him with 9 different counts, and he sentenced to life on every one of those counts consecutively. So 3 consecutive life sentences.
It was almost a deflation in the courtroom when the verdict was read. I felt and heard the Aguilars just finally let out that emotion that they had been bottling up for so long.
We were relieved, thinking that, now we can do our grieving.
It doesn't bring Christian back, but it was satisfying to know that we had done our job and that justice had been done for Christian.
But 11 years later, on March 12, 2025, that justice would be cut short.
At the age of 31, Pedro committed suicide in prison. After battling his demons finally won.
This is a case that really sends chills down my spine, because it's the story of how someone just does not know how to let a relationship go.
Christian is not dead. He remains in my life in my family, in my community, and will remain like that. When he was granted to me as a gift, as a parent, I got blessed to be his parent. There's no way that that's gonna be taken away from me or my family. Nobody's gonna take that away.
No one deserves to struggle alone. If you or someone you love is experiencing suicidal thoughts, there is help available. Call or text 988 for free confidential support from the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.